No, nothing. Not even dreams.
He's after us in our dreams.
Dreams aren't real. You know, dreams can't hurt you.
They're just dreams.
Sweet dream.
No bad dreams about Aunt Maggie?
But my dreams aren't like yours.
That's why they're called dreams. Dreams are not real.
She lives in my dreams.
Sweet dreams, my angel.
In my dreams, I love you.
From my dreams. So beautiful.
Howdy, welcome to Screen Dreams. I'm your host, Cyrus Haley, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Daniel Ferguson. How's it going, Dan?
Hi there. Good to be here.
I thought it was pretty good radio voice there. That's definitely going to fall off as we continue here. Anyway, today we're talking about Paul Verhoeven and Ed Neumeyer's 1987 banger, I would say, Robocop. Here's a clip.
How can I help you, Officer Lewis?
It's not really what I meant. Don't you have a name? Murphy. It's you. You really don't remember me, do you?
Excuse me. I have to go.
So, Robocop, Dan, hit me with it. How was watching Robocop for you today?
Yeah, hadn't seen it in years. I'd watched like clips on YouTube, quite like just like the odd clips. But yeah, like really fun film. I think that's like the first thing that has to be said, really. Like very, very like functional, like action-packed film with like an interesting main character that you kind of want to root for. So yeah, like really enjoyed it. I'm more interested in the kind of the more subtle parts of it. But you know, I think what's interesting and like when you're thinking about this film is like what parts is serving. I mean, does it need to be a functional actional film in order to maybe throw in the more subtle parts, or is that just kind of them just having a bit of fun with it as on, you know, into
Yeah. Well, the thing about this film that's just like completely fucking gnarly that I can't think of another film except for maybe Starship Troopers, which is also Verhoeven. It's like it's funny. It's like you can watch it just as an action film, you know, like you said, it's quite a banging action film actually, just as a cop and rooting for a cop, which I reckon, you know, maybe we'll talk about in more depth later. Like I like Murphy. I dig it. I dig the story even surface level, which, you know, is pretty impressive as is. The fact that it's actually just fun. There's good action scenes. The squibs. I mean, you just those fucking squibs, like the coke shootout, the cocaine warehouse shootout. Come on.
Yeah.
Those fucking squibs.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. The toxic waste scene is absolutely brilliant as well. Because
that kind of comes out of absolutely nowhere and goes on. There's so much little extra effort that goes into stuff like that in this film. Like, you know, all the time it must have taken for the makeup just for that little insert, you know. There's so much stuff like that going on, or the little enjoyable details that they're throwing in, like left, right, and center, which, you know, from a production side must have taken like quite a lot of time. Well, there are some real fucking good, like, okay, opening it on news footage interspersed with a couple commercials. Obviously, you know, opening on news footage now has become, it's almost a red flag for me. You know, if you have like Paramount Pictures and then you hear like, you know, sea levels rising in southern Florida, and then you hear like it fades into another newscast like going like, and it's getting dangerous for local residents. You know, the way, and it just does all this expositional work in the voiceover of the news intro, and it's almost become a trope that like instantly I'm like, oh, this movie's going to be lazily
in superhero
written.
films especially as well, because
exactly.
And RoboCop is a superhero film. I think you have to kind of I mean, it is and it isn't, but you have to. It is wedded to that genre, you know.
I've heard that said.
Yeah.
I've heard that said. I gotta say, I don't feel I'm watching a superhero film when I'm watching RoboCop. But to be honest with you, what I feel like I'm watching when I'm watching RoboCop is RoboCop. So it's like there's nothing like It's like
maybe
the tone of RoboCop. That's the thing. That's just it knows not to take itself seriously. Yet there are scenes in there, and in fact, you can take the film, you can read it as deeply as you like, and it can get to a point where it's like, am I really just overthinking this film? Because Paul Verhoeven appears to be taking the piss completely, but then there's kind of serious shit under the surface of this movie.
Yeah,
about policing, about corporate, power and self and memory and identity and I mean the flashback sequence. That's one sequence that really stood out to me this time watching it, was that flashback sequence where he's walking around his house. And I think that was actually really good filmmaking, to be honest. Completely unironically, I think that was great. Yeah, that's just great. That's a great scene.
Yeah. The house is already for sale, and it's kind of like this. You know, it's like this sort of utopian project that, you know, housing sort of thing, and you've got the guy on the screen and sort of coming in. That was
exactly another job taken by a machine. Like literally, it would be normally a realtor, but now it's a robot, and he's a It's like it's tight. It's and the TJ Laser flashbacks. There's okay. How do you feel about the TJ Laser flashbacks? Do you dig that element as much as I do?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, it was. You know, I think what I'm already kind of thinking and what struck me this time when I was watching the film, and I think all these things we're talking about now is which we're all leading to. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip. Is what
do it.
RoboCop is a very, very interesting character to follow. You're really rooting for him, and you don't especially know why. Considering that he has hardly any dialogue, he has. So I mean, that's why all that TJ stuff at the beginning is so important, because that sets the scene for his sort of humanity that is going to follow through to when he becomes like a machine and is sort of gradually rediscovers himself as a human being again. He discovers his own humanity as he's going along, and that's kind of why. You're loving it, because bit by bit he's kind of repiecing himself together as a human being, and it all ends with him, you know, saying when he asks what his name is at the end, he gives his actual name again. So maybe it's a whole symbolic of finding the his humanity again. Was the whole kind of
definitely
thing.
Yeah. By the way, the ending of have you seen RoboCop 3?
No.
Well, the end. I mean, the fucking end of RoboCop fucking 3, written, I think, co-written by Frank Miller. Just by the way, was a guy RoboCop flies in on a jetpack, kills a bunch of criminal scum, and then he's about to walk off into the sunset, and some guy goes, "Hey, RoboCop, what's your name again?" And he turns around and he says RoboCop. So, I mean, way to shit on the entire point of the first film, but flatly.
I know, because I feel like that was the last line in the film, wasn't it? He gives his name. He says Murphy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was that was like, there you go. He's found himself again, And obviously, during the course of the film, he ends up, taking his visor off to reveal his real face. And by the way, I mean, what a job they did with that kind of. I mean, I still don't know how they've done
with
that
the face,
with the face and the whole with that kind of makeup.
Well, apparently,
it kind of takes away from the actual the actual shape of his head is sort of removed.
There's cavities somehow. Yeah, there's cavities in there. Yeah.
I have no idea how that's done.
Well, I think it's a process
that really holds up.
I think it's a process of building up, because it's weird if you look at Murphy in the opening scenes, his face like relative size-wise, relative to his head, is actually quite big. Like, he's got quite a lot, like his face takes up quite a lot of his skull, right? But then as Robocop, his face looks a little bit small, a little bit, even I would say, more natural looking, because what they've done is I think they've just built up around his face, so built his jaw out a little bit and built his head out a little bit more, so that it can then go flush with the prosthetic. But I mean, it looks like a serious job. I bet you there's documentation about as to how long it would take to get into that and out of that thing. But it's probably, I would say it's like a 6-hour, maybe even more job with that kind of makeup.
Yeah, and that's something that you always appreciate when watching films from this era as well. All the effort that goes into stuff like that, and that's kind of like half my enjoyment now. Maybe not half, but you know, even with like all the Cronenberg stuff and everything like that, you know, the practical effects side of it, you know, and in Scanners where the head just explodes and all this stuff like that. That's we've got to that point now where that stuff has maybe more meaning than it ever has done now, because you know, obviously
that's interesting. So
they don't make films like that anymore, do they?
Yeah, it's almost more powerful than it was watching it like in the 80s, seeing those squibs, because you're like, man, those squibs look so good. I wish squibs still looked like that. But then back in the day, you're just watching movies where squibs look like that every single time. They always look like that good.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're spoilt squib wise.
Yeah, and it just really is. It's more striking. It's more striking, definitely.
I mean, Murphy's death. You know, I don't know. So you watched the theatrical cut, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think
I don't think it was the direct.
I think the two differences, because I checked the running times. They have a difference of running time of 1 minute. So I'm pretty sure all you missed were extra shots of gore, i.e., the scene where Kenny gets shot in the boardroom, which I'm wondering. This is maybe a stretch here, but you know how Kenny in South Park gets killed in every episode? It seems like a bit of a coincidence that guy would be called Kenny and getting shot. I'm wondering if Matt Stone and Trey Parker are Robocop fans, possibly. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a stretch there. I just never noticed that guy's name. He was referred to as Kenny only, which is interesting. Anyway, when he gets shot on the table, there's like an extra 5-6 seconds of serious gore in the director's cut. And I think when Murphy is getting shot, there's more squibs. But I mean, really, I think that's actually it in terms of differences. You're not getting any extra scenes or anything.
Yeah.
But
you still get, that scene in the boardroom at the beginning is interesting, because you kind of feel like, again, the symbolic nature of it is kind of sort of pressing down upon you in the background as well. That kind of the boardroom atmosphere and
the clapping,
all that
the fascistic clapping.
Yeah.
Demented.
Yeah, but I think, honestly, the whole thing, Robocop is, you know, the interesting character, and he's put, you know, he's kind of like the creation that is almost the machine that is like there to solve all our problems.
Yeah.
Made to solve all our problems, but he ends up becoming too good at his job and ends up going like right to the source of the problem.
What I find
which is the greedy evil corporation, and there's a really interesting point in the film where he's kind of you know, the cops turn on him because they've been ordered by, you know, and his you know, the person who sort of created him or like conceived of him has been killed as well, and he's kind of like this
rogue
creation. He's like this creation from then till the end of the film. He's like this creation that just kind of doesn't know where he's at, and the only way forward for him is to kind of discover more about his human kind of self. I don't know. That's kind of what intrigued me, I think, the most this kind of watch.
I liked
this time
about
around,
that.
I think.
Yeah, what I really liked about that is that because like you're saying, he's like, his humanity comes out, and he's this. It's like they keep referring to him as a product, right? I think he's called a product like 3 or 4 times, which I don't know about you, but made me feel somewhat like I related to that. Like I related to being like feeling like I'm treated as a product in this current corporate world. And the fact that the first sign of his awakening, the first sign of his humanity returning is he has a dream, which I think is pretty interesting. It's like this idea of dreaming. And there's actually a few references to dreams in it. Not Dick Jones, but Dick Jones's boss, the big boss of OCP. When he's talking about building Delta City, he says
Delta City,
yeah, which is such a great, like that's such a great like backdrop. Oh, we're gonna build Delta City one day. You know, it will like you know, old Detroit will get its glory back. But he actually even quotes Martin Luther. You know, he goes, he says, I have a dream. I have a dream. I have a dream, or I had a dream, I think are his actual words. He goes, I had a dream, and it's like this corporate dream. And it's I don't know, I just thought it was interesting that he said, I have a dream there, which, like, talking about Delta City. Like, I really think Verhoeven, like, how anti-America is this movie? Because I think he's really hates the shit he's showing here. Verhoeven.
Yeah. There is kind of that treatment of like the subject matter, which is, you know, is kind of like mocking it, you know, whilst sort of depicting it in a. I think that's kind of going back to tone and genre. There is a kind of a mockery sort of going on there, but I don't know. I'm still kind of caught in the middle. It's like, is it just a fun flick, or, you know, I guess it's as serious as you want to take it. It's pitched at that level.
Well, this is
the
thing.
Like,
I can't
where
fucking
you can
nail it down.
So you can read into it on all these levels, but everything always has a kind of a grain of humor sort of inserted into it as well. So you're you know, it's as shallow as deep, I guess, as you want it to be. And I kind of think, you know, sometimes if you want to critique things, you know, in a way, you know, making action films, violent like films is maybe a sort of an acceptable way of approaching the subject matter, seeing as what the subject matter is. Or you can say that it was just, you know, like just a little bit of harmless backdrop. But this film seems to kind of just make a very concerted effort just to keep drawing you back to things. And, you know, like that kind of dystopian kind of just like classic sci-fi dystopian outlook that just it keeps dragging you back and keeps putting
reminding
you there,
you
it,
of
know?
exactly. Yeah. I think it is interesting because I mean, apparently the script like was offered to a bunch of directors, and apparently Verhoeven originally turned it down, and then his wife read it and convinced him to do it, famously saying, "Oh, there's lots of cool satire you could do in it, right?" So there's that reporting on it. You know, there's that information out there. But I feel like Robocop has kind of, obviously with the sequels become something much bigger, you know, and it's hard for me watching Robocop to just kind of, like, it seems like such a miracle movie, but I think I'm kind of projecting a lot into it. Like, it is just a simple fucking action movie with a bit of tongue-in-cheek humor, but I feel like it's pitched so perfectly, that humor, that tone, it's like how do you, that balance seems so well thought out, and it's a balance that I think Verhoeven has also in Starship Troopers and also in Total Recall, but less so. I would say Robocop is the Uber of those three.
Yeah. Maybe he's just like a craftsman in that respect, where he just knows exactly where to pitch his tent to have his fun out of things, but also to make it, you know, a viable film in terms of, you know, marketplace and audience. Maybe that's where he's found his little, you know, sweet spot, I guess, you know, where you know, he's just sort of right in the middle, and people like me and you, if we want to like really run with those themes, you know, the dystopian themes, we can do. But if you wanted to watch it as a you know, just a simple action flick with a bit of, you know, bit of all that going on in the background, that's also a perfectly acceptable way of watching the film as well.
I do think the commercials do kind of I think they do tip over the line. They drive the point home where it's like, hey, listen, we are taking the piss out of this, you know.
Yeah, they are quite like sick, aren't they? I mean, like there's the one guy who's like, what I think is like the most interesting detail about all the commercials is that you've got the guy with the, you know, he's got the cake and he's kind of all just like, you know, I'll buy that for $1. He's kind of laughing, but it's how everybody else just laughs when they everybody who like is watching that commercial. Everyone you see, I think it happens like maybe 3 or 4 times in the film, and everybody who sees it is just like laughing, you know, like
eating
sort of just
up.
like instinctively, like everybody thinks it's like hilarious, and that's kind of the thing, isn't it? It's like how everybody, it's kind of like this. It's more how people react to it, which makes it more interesting, you know, in terms of world building, and you know, and giving you the insight into that society where something like that is so normal and everyone's just like staring at it and just laughing at it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely loving it.
Yeah, and the Nukem game is.
I think that's got to be everybody's favorite. I mean, you know, my borders conflicting with Pakistan. You know, I mean, it's like, come on now.
Yeah, but in contrast to the actual news as well, you know, where there's.
Did you catch the mayor on the Star Wars space station? They said,
I did see that.
That's the first time I'd actually picked up on. That's the opening sequence. They say, like, I don't know, like a politician has. There's been some sort of like malfunction on the Star Wars space station, and then later on.
It's like a peace platform, isn't it?
And then
it's
it shoots
a
a
neutral
bunch of famous people in Santa Barbara and kills them by accident. The peace laser was doing it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like, it's like
it's the same way.
Yeah, it's brilliant. That's great.
Yeah,
but why call it Star Wars? Do you think that's a little dig at the slop that people are eating?
I don't know.
Eat up your Star Wars, you pigs. You know, or no?
It could be. It could be. You know, I mean, that's 87. Isn't it? It's like was Robocop, so it's very much kind of what was. I think Return of the Jedi was 85, wasn't it? So just kind of coming off the back of the original Star Wars trilogy. So I don't know. Maybe I couldn't help but see Kirshner's Irving Kirshner's did it. I don't. When I was sort of loading up the video, I think he had a credit somewhere. Kirshner
who was a little credit here.
Irving Kirshner, who obviously directed Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
So
maybe he was a producer. I don't know. I'm just gonna check that.
Yeah.
Irving Kirshner.
Maybe that's the reference because they've got like the guy who worked on Star Wars. So I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of like a little in joke between.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, could be
between them. Because it's very. Star Wars was Star Wars. I can't see a Star Wars influence on that film, so maybe it is kind of just
like a little fuck you,
you know. Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah, maybe it is. We'll never know. We'll never know. But that's kind of like I'm guessing a kind of like a they call it like a peace platform. It's like neutral territory, I guess. Which ends up firing on its own. So it's all kind of there, isn't it?
It is there. It is there. I mean, it's so well done that you can kind of just not, you know, you don't need to engage with that stuff, but it is there, man. It's all there. And he hates corporate America. He hates Did you realize, obviously it's obvious because Dick Jones and Clarence Boddicker, I mean, Clarence, what a fucking great character Clarence Boddicker is. He's so good in it. I love him.
He's just like the archetype. He's like the archetypal bad guy, isn't he? Really, he kind of plays that role
very well.
Yeah, no,
But-
really, really good. When he throws Johnny out the window or something because he burnt the money in the beginning of the van, he throws him out the van. That's fucking great. But anyway, at the beginning, Dick Jones, when he's presenting Ed 209, the enforcement droid, he says the line, "Good business is where you find it." And later on, when Clarence is trying to do that coke deal, he says that exact same line.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was a very quite a nice little touch there. You know.
Well, yeah, it's just again, it's kind of another scathing comparison, isn't it, between the two business, kind of business people that they are. But yeah, the Delta City is, very like you have the banner.
I love that banner
with the, you have the rescue scene where
above the rape.
he has
crisis
his
center.
Yeah. So you've got the Delta City sort of promise, billboard promise of the, that promise of the, the future, and you've kind of got, with Robocop.
It's almost like the go to the Mars colonies in Blade Runner. The Mars colony billboards.
Promise of a fresh start.
Yeah, exactly.
And Robocop is that kind of, machines are going to kind of fix all our problems sort of thing. If we kind of dream hard enough and invent these machines, but we've also got to
retain our humanity.
We've also got to put our complete faith in these corporate structures able to achieve this. You know?
And
I think the film does that very well.
I think I agree, and I think one thing I picked up on was Directive 4. I think there's kind of an interesting thing there. Now, I mean, obviously, all the shit that's going on in the US right now, like about the cops and how like they're pretty much like rolling into towns with tanks and they're dressed like military. I mean, it's gnarly. Obviously, Verhoeven in '87. There's no way he could have predicted this, but it's I found it interesting watching it in today's context, with Directive 4 being like almost how the rule, like, you can't turn on the gang, on the crew, on the cult, on the cops. You can't turn on your own guys, Like if someone works for OCP, you cannot arrest them. And that's the whole like kind of like there's no accountability, there's no internal affairs within the cops. Like it's I found that quite interesting, like Directive 4 almost being like that, like kind of, or maybe referencing the fact that, cops don't rat on each other. There's no, like internal affairs is a joke, and there's no accountability within the police force. Maybe I'm reading too deeply into Directive 4 there.
I think I think OCP is basically like, what they've done is like a private company is, like, taken over the police force. So you basically privatized the police force, and they're quite interested in sort of like weapons development, and basically using that as a tool to further sort of other projects. But they're solely at the center of blame for a lot of the problems that people are having. So I guess Directive 4 is also that I guess it's, if you want to look at it, if you want to take a liberty and sort of look at the sort of broader political commentary that might be happening with that, then you can also kind of see like that's pointing out the glitch in this in this system, if you like, that we can't, the failure that we seem to have in our society to hold big corporations to accountability
to any kind of accountability
problem
whatsoever.
for the problem that the havoc they're
for
causing,
destroying the world.
like,
our world.
Yeah. So maybe that I tend to think more like in that way as well. So, but
police accountability,
that's
corporate accountability. I mean, I'd like a bit of both. I'd like more of both
exactly.
in my world.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I mean, pretty good stuff for a little fucking a movie where a dude, flips his gun because his son likes TJ Laser. It's like there's all these little things you go deep in and really flesh out, and I like it. I really like that shit.
Maybe he knows that, because RoboCop, obviously, I don't know how successful it was at the time of its release, but I'm guessing it was pretty well received. And it's still, pretty, it's not faded away at all. People, it was made before I was born, for example, and like
you're loving it.
I was watching it when I was, in my I remember watching it in my younger years, things like that. So, it's maybe he's smart and just like
he's definitely smart.
Maybe like make a film that actually gets seen.
I mean, it cost 13 million and made 53 million. 13 million into 53. That's fucking great for 87, mate. Come on now.
Yeah, okay, but he's also made a film that gets seen as well. There's if you want to write, there's something to be said about accessibility and putting
huge,
it's huge. and where you if you do want to maybe plant a few seeds of dissent, or even just make some
that's the episode title right there, Seeds of Dissent.
or even just like just go on your own little political rant, political commentary, or just and have fun with it all. Make a film that's gonna get seen rather than
he's definitely having a
quite
fucking
serious one.
He's having a lot of fun with it. I mean, for sure. And I think that's what that's what I'm most impressed about. Actually, you've touched on it right there. Is the fact that it's so accessible. I mean, it's called Robocop. It almost shoots itself in the foot calling itself Robocop, because Robocop is it's a ridiculous name, It's literally Robocop. It's the best name for it, but it is Robocop.
Yeah.
You get like there's no way my mum is going to watch a film called Robocop. I don't know about your mum, but like, Robocop, man. I mean, that like,
it's kind of like,
it's crude.
It's a good title. I know, but it's kind of like, this is what you're getting. And it kind of, it's a good title. It's because it kind of does what it says on the tin sort of thing. It's not, it's going to find its audience with a title like that, It's just going to deliver on exactly what it's saying. Robocop.
What else could you call Robocop?
If you see what I mean.
You know what I mean? What else could you call that film? It's like
yeah. I mean, it's a very silly idea to begin with,
Well, but do you not see maybe being real down the line?
Well, they did a remake, didn't they? They made a remake.
I mean, fuck the remake. Like, like just the one scene I know about the remake is where he's looking in the mirror with Gary Oldman and he goes, "I don't want to see myself like this again." And if you've seen it, you'll know the scene.
I know. I haven't watched the new one.
Don't bother.
It looks a lot more serious.
It sucks all the joy, all of the joy and whimsy out of it.
It looks a lot more serious, and they've probably like made RoboCop into this much more kind of more effective crime fighter. It's a lot of it is to do with the technology at the time and what it sort of permits you to do, isn't it? And RoboCop, came out just at that time where like such a silly idea as that could be made viable by the tools in which they had at their disposal. What we were saying about the the makeup and and all of that. So it's executed in just well enough a way to make it fly, and that's kind of what makes it a really quite special film, because it very much is, belongs to a place and time which would only allow that kind of film to exist.
And it's gone.
And I think the remake proves that, because wasn't the idea as such which made it so good. It was the way it was done.
Yeah, that's what we've been saying. Yeah, it's this fucking tactful tone. It's like, tongue in cheek just enough, but not so much that you're like, not so much that, because so much shit nowadays is like scared to be sincere and is so cynical, and and it's like, I dig that flashback scene where he's not scared to put some sad music and have his wife say, "I love you, Murphy." You know, like
just lay it on
and lay it on me,
bit,
mate.
you know?
I'm down. Like I'm down with taking that little bit seriously, and then and then fucking with me later. It's like I think it's done just right. The amount
But
of
you don't know.
irony.
Yeah, but he's kind of like having robot dreams as well, isn't he? So he's kind of like
Yeah, android's dream of electric TJ laser. Yeah.
yeah. So you kind of there's always something in that film where it always has that little spin on it. So even though it's ridiculous, you kind of be like, well, though it's like. So that's just another example of that.
So
but yeah.
I'm gonna stick on TJ Laser here because I think it can segue into this point that I do kind of want to at least touch on. I mean, it's not like I'm the origin of this point. I think I watched a video essay or maybe read an article or something about this, but I think it's really fascinating and really interesting. So, but one thing I did notice watching this was the TJ Laser show. The way Murphy's son watches this show with this laser cop, and he's like admires this policeman on this television show, this representation of a cop, and wants his real life cop dad to be like that. Hey, Dad, twirl your pistol once you've shot the bad guys, you know. And he's like, yeah, I will embody those traits, you know, that archetype, that TV cop for you. I will twirl my gun for you, and I'll try. And then taking that one step further for like kids watching Robocop, right? So like that, like Murphy's son kind of watching TJ Laser is the most meta shit in the world, because, and especially given what happened after Robocop with Robocop 2 and then Robocop 3. And then the Robocop cartoon, where Robocop was, literally made into a cartoon. It's not even, it doesn't even need to be a metaphor. He literally was made into a fucking children's cartoon to sell cereal to kids. It's kind of fucked up how, and all of this is apparently because some laws were changed about how much you could advertise. Like Reagan changed a bunch of laws about children advertising. And I think this interesting thing happened where a lot of franchises that were not designed for children ended up, they were like, okay, like all these studios were like, okay, what properties do we have? Because like, holy shit, look at the money that motherfucker Lucas is making with all those goddamn toys and those cereals and it's still going with the Baby Yoda shit. So it's like, you know, and these other studios were like, okay, we got to kidify some of our franchises. Bring in shit like the Rambo cartoon. You know, Rambo's like a movie about a troubled, broken Vietnam vet who's like fucking dealing with his PTSD. It's not a kid's movie. Like Rambo is not a kid's movie in any sense of the fucking word. Same with Ghostbusters. It's definitely geared for teens, if not adults. Yeah. And they make it into a cartoon. Ghostbusters 2 is way more cartoony.
I also remember when they would, you know, off the back of the Jim Carrey films as well, like Ace Ventura, they started to do a lot of cartoons and things like that relating to that, and they're not kids films either, even though like kids probably watch
kids them. Do yeah, I mean, but nowadays I think the bar has been lowered so far that it's like Ace Ventura is pretty tame by today's standards. But yeah, back when Ace Ventura came out, they were like teen, you know, if you were watching Ace Ventura and you were like 12, you're like, whoa, I'm getting like, this is awesome, you know.
I think that's at the time,
or at least that was my experience. I don't know. But yeah, so it's interesting how Robocop ends up being a product sold to children in real life. Verhoeven surely must be loving that. I mean, it's just proving his like it's self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like it's
self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's beautiful. That right there is kind of mind-blowingly, like, it's so tight that actually happened in real life. They had a Robocop cartoon, you know. Like they did it. You know,
I think you know, going back to what I said earlier about the, you know, the superhero genre elements they can't be denied. You know, I mean, like, you know, he's you know, he has super abilities.
Bending the barrel of the gun is a reference to Superman comic, I think, when he bends the barrel of the gun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's in, he's in these situations like these, where he's like averting crisis aversion, where he's like he's stepping in and saving the day. You know what I mean? That when he does his like first outing in the car,
So fucking good.
you know what I mean? I mean, he's got a theme tune any superhero would be proud of as well.
You
by the
dirty
way.
bastard. Let's
Great
let's talk about the
Great theme
soundtrack.
tune.
Yeah. Great soundtrack altogether. You're right. I mean,
Well, you know what's interesting about it, which I don't even know you could say. I mean, if you bought the soundtrack, it probably wouldn't feature an awful lot. Maybe it would. I'm not sure. But when he sort of enters a room, you have like this like synth drone that just comes on like that's just to like imply a sense like a presence,
Yeah.
And I actually really liked that. I mean that it's subtle, but it's clever.
I'd like to steal that for some of my work. That Robocop drone fucking synth hit. It's like it like stretches almost. It's a great
Well,
sound.
no, it's like when he walks into the room, it's kind of like this low hum that comes on, like this low.
Right.
Zzz. Yeah, it's so you wouldn't even. It's very very background.
Oh, I
but
was
it
thinking.
kind of like,
I was thinking of in the scene where that he goes, here's your fucking safe. Where he's robbing the convenience store. When the convenience store doors open, there's like a synth hit there that's like machine. It almost sounds like something out of Tetsuo the Iron Man. Like it's like a machine synth
when the doors
hit when the doors open. But
see,
I didn't notice this hum you're talking about.
Oh, see, yeah, it's definitely there. It's kind of like it's kind of it's basically like a drone made by like a synth,
Right.
and it's kind of there, and it kind of you got the clanging of the the legs going, and it's like when he enters especially early on. I mean, I didn't notice it after that, but when he enters early on, it's added sort of into the background, which I thought was really clever.
I think
as well,
the reveal of Robocop
subtle,
is such a fantastic sequence. Like it's a good 10 minutes where Murphy dies, he's being resuscitated. They're like,
good.
let's call it, fuck it, he's done. And instead of what I found interesting was because I
was so impressed by that, how the gap between him dying and then
coming up,
reawakening
that's ballsy,
isn't it? That was really good.
Really good filmmaking. That's where it's just like film. Shines. Like that could not be done in any other medium. It's perfect little film scene. It goes black for a moment, comes up. But what I found interesting was because I've always loved that scene, and so watching it this time, I was like, okay, pay attention to what shot they choose to fade to black on, because I assumed that what they would do would be, because they keep showing his eyes, that real close-up of his bloody eyes while he's getting the gas mask on him, and he's like, they're trying to resuscitate him.
Yeah,
I assumed,
and he's having the flashbacks.
Exactly. I assumed they would show him, like, the doctors going, all right, let's call it, from a POV shot, and then fade that to black. But they didn't. They actually faded to black the shot of Clarence Boddicker shooting him in the head instead. And I know it's a subtle little detail, but that's a real nice choice I found to hammer home that Clarence Boddicker shooting him in the head is the last thing he thought of, and it's like maybe the residual memory stuck in the circuitry. It's like that memory stayed, and he thinks of the TJ laser, and that memory stays. Or it's like, when they say you see your life before you die, it's like the little flashes that he saw was all he had left to then rebuild the rest. And that's all told visually.
And he actually says in the film he doesn't remember things, but because he asks about Murphy's wife and kids, and he says, I don't remember them, but I feel them. And maybe there's sort of an essence there of what, his human parts actually are. They're not actually living memories, but they're just sort of feelings that have stayed with him, which is kind of interesting to kind of distinguish the two.
Yeah.
And it was these feelings that was enough for him to kind of like drive his kind of kind of like rebellion,
his arc,
where he kind of
his
just
whole story.
leaves the police station, kind of just going off feelings. How his humanity kind of like traces of humanity kind of linger and follow through, and is then sort of pieced together and rediscovered, I think just makes him a good character.
Yeah, that's the.
Even though
we keep
even
saying
though he hardly
it's
says anything.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like it's just like you're like, yeah, this is great. This is great. And the moment
and there is a sense of development there
there
as
is,
well. Because the film still needs
in order to work in the
It needs
in
an
the
arc.
simple way that
it
it
needs
does.
to. Yeah, exactly. It needs to be. Let's quickly talk about. First of all, let's talk about the Twin Peaks cameos. I mean, it's great to have Ray Wise. I mean, like when
Such a scary face. If you need a man with a scary face,
when he goes when
just get Ray Wise.
when the
He's got a
guy
very scary
when
face.
the slime ball guy goes to hug him and he's like, "Don't touch me, man!" And it's great. That's great stuff. And
all great deaths as well.
Yeah.
in that last sequence, like everybody had
Clarence
an amazing
Boddicker
death,
hitting
basically.
hitting the toxic waste, and he just turns into fucking jam, like just goo.
Oh, when he hits the car,
Yeah.
he's already kind of
he's
like
he's just a mush.
yeah, and just all I mean, I appreciate that the effort gone into that. Like I mean, that must have taken him ages. But as we said earlier, these are the things
Takes
that
forever.
I enjoy most about films from this time now. All that extra effort gone into the practical effects. But Ray Wise's character had a pretty good death as well. Just gets like,
what was Ray?
yeah,
he
he
just
thinks
gets
he's
blown
like,
up. Yeah, he's like, I did it for you, Clarence. Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah.
he's just like thinks he's won basically, and then just all of a sudden just goes boom. Kind of. A little bit like Uncut Gems.
Yeah,
he just thinks he's like all his problems, like he's won basically. He's won at life.
Yeah,
and then just gets a bullet
shot in the brain.
straight afterwards.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite scene? Because I mean, I would say, look, I think the standard scene to go for is Your Move Creep, and it's the shooting the dick. And I don't know if you've seen the Robocop remake, where a bunch of like amateur filmmakers remade Robocop, and then the dicks shooting scene is like an extended 10 minutes of just practical dicks.
Yeah,
being
you showed me
okay,
that.
Right.
You did actually show me that.
Brilliant. So that's obviously the best.
Not a fan, to be honest.
Really, you don't like that? Too much.
No, I mean
the dick shooting too much for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I just really like the original scene as well. I mean, I think
you don't like
I
it
think
taking
that
the
is
piss.
What?
You don't like that you feel like they're maybe taking the piss.
No, it's not that. I don't know. I'm indifferent, or maybe I should say I'm more indifferent.
Fair enough. I've never shown the dick shooting remake RoboCop scene to anyone and had their reaction be indifferent. And I love that that's your reaction to it. You're like, nah, I'm not into it. It's like, what? That's 5 minutes of practical close-ups, slow-mo close-ups of cocks being blown up.
I know, and
you're just like, yeah,
I've just
I'm not
been
into
talking about how I love practical.
Yeah, exactly.
effects
But you're just like, nah,
that.
man. I need motivation. I need humanity motivating these effects. It can't just be cocks being blown up.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, no, it's all there to serve a storytelling purpose, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
and if it's
it's all just storytelling tools.
Yeah.
And if your story is just
once it just devolves to dick shooting,
blown up, and then what have you got really?
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's funny.
Dick, yeah.
Like it's supposed to be funny, but I just fun. If it's funny, I'll laugh at it, and I won't be able to help laughing, and nothing. I was just drawing a blank to that one. But
fair.
It's nice that like it's got like a fan base behind it, like a loving fan base. I think it is one of those ones. It's like it's become kind of like a cult kind of thing where you've got fans making like fan films, like RoboCop fan made pictures and stuff like that, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we're doing a podcast on it in 2020. It's like it's a legendary classic cult film. It's loved, it's beloved, and I think rightly so, for God's sake. I was thinking though, do you root for I'm just going to call him Albert, the other Twin Peaks, not Ray Wise. But do you root for Albert? Because obviously Albert, Albert's a piece of shit. Like, he's trash. But Dick Jones is such trash that it's like, at least in that little corporate subplot, I find myself also, because Albert essentially is the creator of RoboCop. So he's responsible for me, in a way, for me watching RoboCop and enjoying RoboCop, because he makes the RoboCop character within the film. He's the character that green lights the RoboCop program.
He kind of has stewardship over RoboCop, and you kind of feel like he is very much like whilst this guy is around, RoboCop is very much kind of a product, as he saying, he's referred to many times in the film. He is like the owner of RoboCop, and it's a really interesting development in RoboCop's character when this guy is no longer in the picture. He's kind of like a dog without a leash sort of thing, and he's just kind of free to go in his own direction.
Well, he's a free agent at that point. Yeah. He's like,
and then like the police force, who he's supposed to, like his other sort of fraternity, if you like,
turn their back.
They kind of all turn on him, and I think that's just a great point in the movie where he's like this half man, half machine creation,
shunned.
Like doesn't the people who've created him have been like destroyed by other rival corporation cronies. Like the police force, either are under their orders, have like turned against him and firing at him. Obviously was never going to fully belong there anyway, and he's kind of just like showering these bullets, just showering at him. He's just like sort of writhing around. And there's, I don't know, there was something quite, I don't know, just something hit me quite hard about that. This time around. I mean, I don't know.
No, I agree. That's
and he's kind of like half man, half machine, trying to find his humanity. And I don't know. There's just something very, very striking about that this time around.
Yeah. I liked it when he was sitting in the steel mill and his partner. What's his partner called again? God, it's like a Lewis, I think. She's called Lewis.
Lewis, that's it. Yeah, Lewis, that's right. Yeah.
When Lewis comes in and he's like, "You got a gun?" and he's all like fucking like, got like bulleted out, and he really, that moment, that line, "Did you get a gun?" I think he says to her as she comes back to the steel mill, the very place where he was, where his metamorphosis began. I agree. That hit harder for me, that moment as well, where it's like, God, if it wasn't for Lewis, he's on his own. I mean, and I think Lewis is really good in it. The way she just,
great supporting character.
She's brilliant in it. Like, she's just casually like, Murphy, it's you. And that's...
she refuses to see the machine. She refuses to not acknowledge him as a human being, basically. And that's the kind of the inseparable bond that they have. And she ends up saving him, doesn't she? So, because she can't, maybe she feels partly responsible for why he's like that. So they have that bond there.
Oh, yeah, I guess, I hadn't even thought about, there would be you would feel somewhat guilty, because it's like, you got okay, let's talk about her checking out the black dick. I think that, I honestly think that warrants talking about. So,
okay.
so, because, I don't know, it struck me this time. It's like, basically, her intro scene is her whooping the shit out of some dude, right? And then she takes off her helmet, and I guess that's like a reveal, like, oh, like, this is a woman kicking a dude's ass. But it doesn't... Verhoeven's always been really good at not having that be, like, in your face. Like, the co-ed shower scenes of Starship Troopers come to mind. But there's a lot of, like, female characters, he's just like, look, they're going to be strong, and we're not going to fucking make a big deal about it, okay? They're just going to be good characters, like, I'm making a good movie here. I'm not going to, go... have everyone go, "Hey, Lewis, you're pretty tough for someone with a clam." None of that. She's just tough, and we don't need to fucking reference it. However, huge however, there is her one moment of weakness. The one moment where someone gets the drop on her is she has to look at some cock. Comments, Dan. Thoughts?
So,
How do you feel about? I'm stating facts here. I'm not saying we need to read into it. Maybe it's just one of those. Oh, it's a funny little moment. Look. To be honest with you, I think
it's a strange choice.
It could work with a man. It could work with a man. That's the one thing that kind of makes my theory. I don't have a theory, but that kind of works on Paul Verhoeven's side is that even if that was Murphy, and he's like, "Man, if I put this away," and Murphy looked down at his cock. That would still work. I mean, it would still work if it was a man. So I guess maybe I am reading deeply into that. But I did think her looking at a cock being her one moment of error was worth noting here on Screen Dreams.
Well, it's a strange choice, like,
Yeah.
and you know, it is you know, because it is very much set up to be like that, isn't it? I mean, because he, you know, as she kind of approaches him, he's sort of going, you know, for a piss or whatever. So it's all, you know. So I don't know. It's a funny one.
It is just a weird thing I picked up on this time. I'm not saying, I've not much else to say on it. Just noticed it. Worth a mention, I think. Worth a mention.
Yeah, it definitely is kind of one of the more stranger choices. But it's kind of one of those films where it's pulling a lot of shapes, and you know, it's just it's just doing it all with sort of a pinch of salt, and it's kind of
So did you root for Albert? Let's just take it. Let's just take it there. Did you find yourself going, like, when Albert was getting his legs shot by Boudica, were you a little bit like no, or were you like, yeah, fuck off, you cunt?
I was rooting for him slightly, but I don't know if that was my. I don't know. I don't know if it's because I like the actor, or the character.
Maybe.
You know, I'm kind of getting a bit.
Well, if you like the character, then you like the character. That's, you know, I mean, that's all you need. I like this. I mean, the scene where he's like, you know,
I think it's because I like
Jones
the actor.
is old news. You know, Dick Jones is old news. You know, we're the young kids. You know, and then Dick Jones comes out. And he doesn't wash his hands, and he runs his hand. He's just taken a shit, because you can see in the insert from under the stall that he's sat on that toilet. He's not standing. He's not. I mean, he's in a stall, for fuck's sake. So he's shitting. That's fact. And Dick comes out, doesn't wash his hands, and runs his fingers through Albert Rosenfield's hair. So there's that.
I guess like him as a character, there are things to like there. You know, he isn't totally despicable. You know, he is kind of like young, plucky. He's got a comic timing as well, which is helping the film. Like, you know, beat for beat, he's dropping punchlines. You know what I mean? Like,
he goes,
"There's a new guy in town." Like, oh, you know what I mean? Which is just like, so there's a lot. There is stuff to like about that character, you know, that has built up to that point before his death. That is just less about the actual character, but more of just, I think, how it's been acted, you know, and that's what I mean. I think I like the actor more than the character.
Fair enough. I think one thing that made me kind of hate him was when he said, when his partner goes, shame about Kenny, and he goes, well, that's life in the big city for you, or something like that. And it's like, dude, he just got, I mean, he's probably got a wife and kids, mate. He just got fucking shot to shit.
Yeah,
and
maybe
that's life in the big city, mate. You know, it's like,
maybe it's only fair then that he kind of, you know, the same
suffers
thing.
a similar fate. Yeah. Those leg shots. Also, the sound of Clarence Boudica's silencer in that scene. It's just like a, and it's great. His legs just getting torn up. It's fucking good. Really good.
And the most outrageous death possible is obviously just like you know, instead just letting him just like scrape around for this grenade
for that nade.
So just why not? Like, just let's just blow up I mean, there's so many kind of again, like when they're just trying out these guns, and they're just blowing up all this stuff. It's like, you know, the effort that to go into such a minor part of the plot is surprising.
Yeah, it's like that scene doesn't really need to be there. That scene serves as an origin story for the explosive rifles, is what that scene is. And also as maybe a dick measuring contest with the guy who pulled out his dick earlier, actually, ironically, between Clarence, where he shoots the car.
But they could but they could have just left it at that, but instead
they don't need that. They start blowing up corner shops
with these guns, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they start blowing up corner shops. I mean, those explosions look so phenomenal, and that leads me back to where I wanted to go with. I think my favorite self-contained scene is the gas station scene, where he's like, "What are you, a fucking Noid, you little bookworm?" You know, and he's like, you know,
oh yeah, the fact that he was getting a college education seemed to really get to him, didn't
deeply.
It?
He's like, "Oh, what? Do you think you're fucking smart? You I don't know why I'm doing a Boston, but he's like, "What? You're a college boy, huh?" You know, and
So that kind of
Yeah.
gives nice subtle reading into the characters, you know,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
and what, you know.
Well,
Maybe-
anti-intellectualism of punks.
Yeah, but
punk scum.
maybe him as a character feels like he was deprived of those kind of opportunities. So that's what, like,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
that's why he's ended up the way he has, and that's why that kind of really gets to him. When this
all
guy's
by just giving a
learning-
guy a little book for geography, or geometry or what,
It
plain
was
geometry, I think it was.
plain geometry, yeah.
Brilliant. That's what I'm saying. Like how it comes across so effortless. Like that you could imply a whole backstory there. You're right, and that's not even far fetched to say that he's so offended by that guy reading that fucking geometry, but because he wasn't afforded those same opportunities. Whatever, he feels emasculated almost, or at least challenged in front of that guy.
Yeah. So there's so many like things like that are sprinkled throughout this film where you kind of you can read into things as much or as little as you want, and it's kind of it's however whatever way you're inclined to do so.
Mm.
You can have kind of like these in-depth of chats like sort of we're doing now, or you can watch it as a plain action film. I think that is
Plain geometry.
that is what probably the greatest asset of this film, I would say.
I
The fact
agree.
that they can, he's pitched his tent.
Yeah, he's rocking two hats, and he looks good. He looks good in them.
It is as shallow, as deep as you want it to be, and if you
Yeah.
want to go in further, there's stuff there. There's plenty of stuff there.
Plenty of really good stuff that's only, to be honest with you, only getting more prescient, I feel, as we're living through the end times, like end of current times, like we're the human machine symbiosis is well underway, and it's more, it's fun. It's fun to watch RoboCop still, and don't think it will ever not be fun for me to watch RoboCop. For the rest of my life.
It is really fun, and maybe therein lies why maybe that's the spoonful of sugar, as
that helps the ideology go down.
It's a cult classic for a good reason overall, is what I would say.
Absolutely, I'd say that's a perfect place to wrap up. Do you have anything else you want to touch on that maybe?
I think we covered quite a lot there.
I agree. I think we didn't do too badly, did we? All right, folks. Thanks for listening to Screen Dreams. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Next week, we will be covering Andrei Tarkovsky's 1966 film, Andrei Rublev. Take her easy.